Hi again, everybody. Today's learning target is I can graph real numbers on a number line and compare their values. When we talk about numbers, we have whole numbers. These are the ones you learn to count with. And then we got the integers by adding the negative numbers. And then we added fractions and decimals. So now we have the rational numbers. And then you did square roots, and you found there are some numbers that either don't stop their decimals or they don't have a repeating pattern like 3333333. So that makes up the real numbers. And then in Algebra 2, you're going to talk about the complex numbers, which includes all of these. However, in Algebra 1, all the numbers that we're going to focus on are the real numbers. A special type of real number and a word that you want to know both for the rest of the year and for the rest of your math life is integers. Integers are the counting numbers, and they may be either positive or negative. So for example, -1, +2, 10, -25. All of those are integers. Something like square root of 55, not an integer. 3/5, not an integer. 2.1, not an integer. So as you can see, there's no fractions or decimals. They're just numbers that you would count with. So, one of the things that can help us compare values of numbers is the real number line. And hopefully, as you remember, when you read the real number line, it goes from left to right, just like you would read. And lesser numbers go to the left on the real number line. And then as you go to the right, you have numbers that are greater. So knowing the position on the real number line, checking how far to the left or how far to the right it is, can help you compare values. One of the other things, hopefully you remember about the real number line, is that all the numbers to the left of 0 are negative, and all the numbers to the right of 0 are positive. And because you're reading left to right, for the positive numbers, 4 is bigger than 1, and since you're farther to the right, 4 is going to have a greater value than 1. However, everything's backwards when you go to the left on the negative side. Even though 4 is bigger than 1, when you're talking about negative numbers, -1 has a greater value than -4 because -1 is farther along to the right and -4 is farther along to the left. So in comparing real numbers, it helps to have a couple signs. These are two inequality signs. This one is the greater than sign, and this one is the less than sign. We'll also talk about a few other of these inequality signs a little later in the year, but for now these are the two you want to know. If you want an easy way to remember them, remember that the less than sign points to the left. So let's do some problems. We're going to use a number line to compare the numbers using an inequality symbol. And the first one, we have 4/9 and 0.3. You may be thinking, whoa, 4/9, how am I supposed to figure out where that is? Well, for some of these fractions and these numbers with square roots, we're going to pull out our calculator and use those to help us out. So you take out your calculator. I'll take mine out as well. And 0.3, we can figure out where 0.3 is going to be. However, 4/9 might be a little tougher. So on my calculator, if I want to take a fraction and I want to change it into a decimal, all I'm going to do is just do that division problem. So I'm going to do 4 divided by 9 for 4/9, and then I'll hit enter, and then I'll find that's about 0.444. So it's about 0.444. And now I'll use my number line. So I'll have 0. And then, you can say 1 somewhere over here. So now if I have 0.3, that'll be approximately here. And 0.444, since I look at the place to the right of the decimal point, and in the tenths place, the 0.4 is greater, so 0.444 will be a little farther along. So therefore, since the 4/9 is farther to the right on the number line, I'm going to say 4/9 is greater than 0.3. Okay, our second one, we have -1/11 and -5/61. Again, you're probably thinking, I have no idea how big these numbers are, or how small, or how negative. So again, we're going to use our calculator. So we'll put in -1. Again, the negative sign's down here in the bottom right corner of your calculator. And so we'll do -1 divided by 11. And so we have 0.0909, etc., etc. And I'll do -5/61. So same thing, I do -5 divided by 61, the numerator divided by the denominator. And this one's -0.081. So again, we'll kind of stretch out our number line. So again, this is about 0.09. This is about 0.08. And they're both negative. And now remember, the tricky thing about the negatives is they're backwards. So the -0.08 is going to be closer to 0 than the -0.09. And so since the -1/11 is farther to the left than -5/61, I'm going to say -1/11 is less than -5/61. So remember, you can use your number line to do these comparisons. The number farther to the left is lesser. The number farther to the right is greater. Okay. Final problem we're going to do is we're going to write a bunch of numbers in increasing order, and what that means is least to greatest. So let's put some numbers down on our number line. So we'll be able to put these down and be able to compare them. Now notice we have some decimals, so 3.6 will be really easy, 1.8, -3 will be really easy. But then we have some fractions here, -7/2, we have 5/3, and then we have square root of 5. Now the other thing to remember positive numbers are always on the right and negatives are on the left. So a positive number will always have a greater value than a negative number. There's no exception to that. So let's use our calculator for some fractions. Come on, calculator screen. There we go. Okay, so if I do -7/2, find that's about -3.5. If I do 5/3, it's about 1.6. And then I do square root of 5. To do square roots on your graphing calculator, hit second up here in the top left, and then hit the x squared button down here on the left. That'll give you a square root. And then square root of 5. We find that's about 2.23. So we have negative 3.5, we have negative 1.6, and then 2.3. Okay, so now it's time to find these. Negative 3.6, well, that's going to go over here. Okay, I keep looking. Oh, I see negative 3.5. And again, it's negative. The 3.5 is closer to 0 than the 3.6. So negative 3.5 will be next. It'll be to the right. And then I'm looking negative 3. That one's next as I move to the right. Okay, that's all my negatives. So now let's go to the positive numbers. Looks like 1.6 is my next one, the 5/3. So there's 1.6, or 5/3, and then 1.8, that's going to come afterwards. And then finally, there's about 2.3, square root of 5. So now we're ready to write them in order. So I have negative 3.6. I have negative 7/2, then negative 3, then 5/3, then 1.8, and then finally square root of 5. So now you should hopefully be familiar with ordering and comparing real numbers, and now you should be ready to go try some practice problems.